Hello, ladies and gentlemen, everyone outside and in between. My name is Blair and welcome to the debut episode of Terrible Taste.
Woo.
The only show where perhaps we're someone on the other side of a television set. I am joined by my guest today, Jamie of GCU Audio Society. Say hi, Jamie.
Hello.
And on today's episode, we'll be discussing James Schoenbrun's I Saw the TV Glow from 2024. And we're going to find out if whether or not it was done in terrible taste. Now, first things first, Jamie, your general thoughts on this film, I Saw the TV Glow.
I love it. Absolutely. It's like top, well, I mean, hard to rank movies certainly, but it's got to be like top 5, top 10. It's so brilliant. I saw it when it showed in the Glasgow Film Theatre, which was like late last year, I believe. It's so fantastic. It's just, it looks beautiful. It's got such a good message. There's a million things I can say about it, you know.
I feel the same way as my kind of first impressions, because when I kind of like saw the trailers and kind of the general kind of buzz around it, to me it definitely felt like a very unique film with a very unique aesthetic to it, and that's kind of what drew me to it. And I was the same. I really wanted to go see this movie in the theatre, and fortunately / unfortunately, the place that was showing it was the GFT. All the big theatres, the View, Cineworld, RIP, they all do not show this film because it is, as you're about to find out, a very niche and very special kind of film because it is, how to put this, it's quite subtle in its presentation, shall we say. It's definitely more on the surreal side, which, as you can imagine, doesn't quite appeal to a mass audience.
It was, I remember when I went to see it, which I was like so lucky. I you know, one of the many, there's like a lot of people have differing opinions. I've seen a lot of people online say that like they think it's mislabeled as a horror movie. I had the soul scared out of me so many times when I watched that movie. There's just one bit like towards the start where, what's he called? The like ice cream man character.
Oh, yeah.
He's got this like big melting face and it's like horrible looking. It's scary. It's a scary movie. I mean, you know, you could certainly call it a thriller as well, but
that's a very interesting point you make, because one of the reasons why I wanted to cover this film, with regards to kind of its reputation and kind of some of the critiques I've seen of it, is a lot of it's, there are people who obviously speak quite highly of this film, obviously ourselves included, we have quite a positive view of it. However, one of the main sort of critiques against it was its marketing, because if you did watch the trailers and read some of the articles coming out at the time of its release, you would think this is sort of a very like surreal horror movie about essentially a young guy being affected by this TV show he used to watch when he was younger. But then when you actually watch the film, its themes and its overall kind of presentation, it kind of goes a lot deeper than that than a traditional horror film. It definitely leans more towards potentially being a thriller or even a surreal drama. And so it does make it a very kind of unique discussing point, because I do have a sort of bias towards horror films that try to be kind of more than horror, if that makes sense.
totally.
Because this is a film that definitely can be quite unnerving with some of the themes that it kind of discusses and presents to the audience. But at the same time, it's definitely not something where it's like, you know, you're not having, you know, ghosts and skeletons like jump out to scare you. You mentioned the moment with the ice cream man. That's kind of like, I'd argue, kind of the only traditional sort of scare moment in the film, which the audience will be explaining the context of why there's a melting ice cream man in this movie. Don't you worry.
You know, it's for a reason, definitely.
Yeah. For those who haven't seen the film, a bit of background context. So, as stated, this is a movie that was written and directed by James Schoenbrun, who is a sort of an up-and-coming non-binary director who, previous to I Saw the TV Glow, had written and directed the film We're All Going to the World's Fair in 2021. That is a film that's also worthy of discussion on this show, because it is, again, another very unique and very niche type of film that also kind of explores themes of identity, as well as kind of one of the few movies I've seen that tackles the idea of they deal with an ARG. Jim, are you familiar with what an ARG is at all?
Really good. I don't remember. I've heard the term before. I cannot, for the life of me, tell you what it means.
It's an internet term for something called an alternate reality game, where essentially it is sort of like stories and mythology that are spread around the internet that sort of become a thing in reality. It's sort of as part of a game. There are a lot of examples you can find online, and also a lot of kind of bigger names have kind of used ARGs to kind of promote their own stuff. The band Film Pilots, they're kind of known for doing ARGs, kind of promote their work and expand the mythology of their works, for example. But yeah, it's one of the few films I've seen tackle that subject, and also kind of just the kind of more weirder side of the internet. This film is quite important when crossing over into this movie, Isolated TV Glow, as Jane Schoenbrun, when kind of discussing the film, said that part of the film was meant to kind of represent the idea of dysphoria as part of this kind of like internet game and trend that's shown in the film is, you know, depicting very weird instances of like body horror, which is a thing we're going to discuss a little more in depth later, where essentially there's I think the one particular scene is somebody who ends up like taking out like a strip of like tickets from out of their skin, amongst other very weird examples from this film. So that the idea of kind of gender dysphoria is something that is very prevalent in this film we're about to talk about. And when it came to the creation of Isolated TV Glow, the actual process of writing it came about when Jane Schoenbrun, when they were 2 months into their hormone replacement therapy, began writing the script, where the sort of idea was sort of creating these two characters who represented both sides of kind of Jane's thoughts during their transition. The two characters being the protagonists of Isolated TV Glow. One of them being Owen, played by Justin Smith.
No, it's Justice.
Justice Smith. Yeah, sorry. Pardon my French. But yes, Justice Smith, who plays the protagonist Owen, and Jack. Where are my notes? Jack.
I believe in you.
I believe in me. Come on. First show, we'll get there, folks.
Certainly, I can't remember.
Yes, Jack Haven plays the character of Maddie. Owen sort of representing kind of the fear of change and of transitioning, whereas Maddie represents sort of the desire to change, desire to push on and sort of fulfill your sort of true identity. That's kind of the building blocks kind of started the script of this film.
It's, yeah, I mean, not to like, you know, take a strong stance on my opinions, right? You know, what, 8 minutes in?
Yeah.
To me, the film's about being trans, you know, or at least it is to me. I went into it already sort of hearing about those themes and the people who talked about that kind of connection to it. And yeah, I mean, when I saw it, every time I've seen it since, you know, the first time I saw it and every other time, I've cried. I cry so much at this movie. It is, you know, as for those of you who don't know, as a trans man myself, it is something that really hits home for me. You know, there's you don't get a lot of media that talks about being trans. You don't get a lot of things that really break down the general stress and fear and anxieties and stuff that come with understanding your gender or trying to understand it. It's just, I think it's done so well. It's like, even if it's portrayed in a really confusing sort of like allegory, metaphor way, I think it's just done so well.
I had a similar reaction when I watched it, though it didn't come until quite a bit later, because I've seen this film 3 times in total. My first time was at the GFT in a theatre with a very varied audience. There were some people about my age, as well as kind of older, more fancy-looking folk, as you're bound to see at the GFT amongst all the hipsters. And I did leave the theatre, you know, having enjoyed the film, but also with that kind of pit in my stomach, as as we're going to discuss much later on with regards to kind of the ending of the film, it does leave quite a punch. But it wasn't until I watched it the second time when, for whatever reason, the film was being shown on Sky Cinema at like 2 in the morning.
Really?
Which it was really discussed in the film. It's kind of like the perfect kind of setting to watch it, given the sort of presentation of the film and obviously its emphasis on television, which, given the title, you can kind of guess. But it was when I was watching the film by myself, in my dark red room at like 2 a.m. when certain moments, and I could process it a lot more. They hit a lot harder, and I want to say I played quite like 3 separate occasions while watching it on my own. And then the final time I rewatched it again for this show. And even then, there was the one particular moment which we'll get to that did again get the waterworks flowing. So. This is not something I've been very like public in my kind of personal life, but I am someone who does personally identify as non-binary, and this was the film that kind of helped me reach to that conclusion. Hence why it does have a special place in my heart, and why, admittedly, this first episode is going to be very biased with regards to if this movie was done in terrible taste. So, already, first episode, we're throwing at the premise right out the window. But, well, that's just how the dice roll, I suppose. But also, before I do forget, I will also mention that this episode is being made coincidentally alongside Trans Awareness Week, which I was not aware of at the time. I chose this movie before having learned that it turns out this week is Trans Awareness Week, so that matched up quite well.
I also totally forgot. I've not kept track of when that is in many a year. I'm the exact same as you. This film has really got a special place in my heart. Not just because I think it's awesome and a great film, but I have. I'm how old am I? I'm 20 now. I started my transition when I was 13, and it was not a good time. I was the first person, in my high school to transition. I did it in the, as I think I've told you before, did it in the loudest way possible. I sent or wrote a letter that was read out to everyone in my year, just all at once. And this kind of film is the exact sort of thing I wish I had when I was a younger kid. I spent so many years before that, as I think every trans, non-binary person, genderqueer person does, just being like, there's something up. Something's going on, but I don't have any of the language to put towards what it is. I don't have any of these tools. No one's directing me anywhere. I don't know what's going on. I would have given so much for a film like this to be out, 5-10 years earlier. It's just, it really does an important thing, I think,
I agree as well. I do wish I had this sort of film in earlier stages for myself as well. I am, from my experience, I am still kind of in the process of still trying to feel what stuff I am most comfortable the way I present myself, and still trying to feel my identity. But because it wasn't until kind of my later years in high school where I did start to question how I wish to present myself, and am I fully comfortable with my current identity. And it was towards the end of high school towards the end of high school and going into college where I kind of had that thought process of, maybe this is all silly. Maybe these films are just kind of, I'm tracing the trend, and I'm just it's all kid stuff. But then I go and watch this movie and I come out and I'm like, maybe we should explore that thing a bit more. Maybe there's something there.
Maybe it's a little
normal. Yeah. And given this is a film that does deal a lot with, because as we're about to discuss, one of the big focal points of the movie is the fact that both our protagonists are drawn to this kind of 90s kind of spooky TV show, which is something that I still enjoy. I like that sort of nostalgic form of horror.
Buffy the Vampire inspired.
Yeah.
That is, I'm not personally, I sort of represent the less horror heads. I am generally a big coward. Wow, I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That show is just fantastic.
I I'm going to make a confession live on air. I know I already came out as non-binary live on air. Hi, Mum and Dad. Sorry if I saw you find out. But the bigger confession is the fact that even I'm fully aware that one of the inspirations for the TV show that we see within ISO TV Glow is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I have never seen an episode. I'm sorry.
Out. That is ridiculous. It's Buffy the Vampire Slayer is. I will not derail the show. I know we're talking about a specific film. I promise I won't go on too much of a tangent. But I love that show so much. I got into it in the weirdest way as well. I didn't like. Plenty of people get to Buffy because it's, some of it's very, or not very early, but an earlier form of really good queer representation. Willow and Tara, those characters are very important to a lot of people. That's not how I got into it. I got into it because I had to watch it for media in high school because I had a great media teacher. Shout out, he's not listening, but he was fantastic. And he got us to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and it was one of the best shows I've ever seen. So much fun. That's your homework after we finish this. One, you need to leave and go watch the pilot episode.
Well, we'll class first after that, but then at some point I get all me, so I'll tune into Buffy. Who knows, maybe that'll be the next episode. It's not, but one can dream. But I've not seen it tragically, but I am aware that is one of the inspirations for the TV program we see presented throughout. I saw the TV Glow, as James Schoenbrun has got on record to specify that yes, that is one of the inspirations.
Do bring me back for the Buffy episode whenever that happens.
If it happens,
I won't give you a second of airtime. I will be doing nothing but talking. I mean, in my defense, I did have to write many 2,000 word essays on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Well, I think perhaps you can bring that knowledge towards the film we're about to discuss, because the chances are there could be certain inspirations that, because I've not seen Buffy, I'm not aware of, so it'd be interesting if you could draw some attention to that. But yes, to really get into the meats and potatoes of the film now. So, as we've established, this film is very much, its main sort of talking point and theme is about identity and specifically being transgender. It is written and directed by a transgender director, as I've covered in sort of the background context. This film is directly driven from their experience going through hormone replacement therapy. And right as soon as starting into the film, one of the first things we see is our protagonist, Owen, who during this part of the film is played by Ian Foreman when he's younger. One of the first things we see is, I believe it's like the parachute.
The big thingies.
Yes.
Yeah, parachutes.
Yeah, if you're in primary school at some point, I'm sure you've carried them. You fling them up. Everyone runs under it. We see that in the film, and in the film we see it literally presented in full trans flag colours. The blue, the pink, the white. So right out of the gate, immediately we're seeing this film streams placed right up front.
Absolutely, no holds barred. Straight away.
Straight in there. Another thing that happens, the very first thing we see is we do see young Owen kind of flicking through channels on the TV, and they encounter a little TV show called The Pink Opaque, which is essentially like this the 90s teen drama Monster of the Week style show following two characters, Isabel and Tara, who are psychically connected through something called the Pink Opaque and are trying to fight against an entity called Mr. Melancholy, who's also the moon and who can also warp space and time and reality. Are we still following?
It's a little bit, bit confusing.
It's a little bit confusing out of context, but that is essentially the TV show that Owen becomes fascinated by. And we can also see in this kind of the first shot, not the first shot, but one of the first shots is Owen kind of flicking through his channels in a bit of a dissociative state, which the idea of disassociation is something that kind of comes up throughout the film as we're about to see. But after that, we get the parachute with the trans colours, with the song Anthems for a 17-Year-Old Girl by Yule playing.
Beautiful song. So
Very
good.
beautiful song. You might recognise it if you've seen, I believe it's in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the Edgar Wright film.
Yes.
It appears in that as well. You might recognise it. But I believe this is on the film's soundtrack, which I found out are all original songs are made for this film because James Schoenbrun was like, well, I've got money to burn with all his 24 credit, might as well get all my favourite artists to make songs for the film.
It was actually like before I heard about any of the stuff to do with the trans allegory or any of the theming or literally anything else about the film. The first thing I heard was that the so not like the written songs, but like the soundtrack was done by Alex G. And I heard that and I was immediately like, I have to watch this film. That's just so good.
And actually also composed the music for We're All Going to the World's Fair, the previous film before this, Jane did, which is very interesting. But yeah, the music does play a very strong role in this movie. I mean, you're part of the Audio Society, so
yes,
big role for
Audio
it.
Society, audio tech student, audio passionate person. I love it. I'm always big on movie and TV show soundtracks. I think really drive things forward. And yeah, I mean the movie kicking off with that song with Anthem for a 17-year-old Girl is so brilliant. It's really good.
It just perfectly fits kind of the vibe of this kind of like this kind of nostalgic kind of look that the film has, as well as kind of the song definitely does fit the themes of the film, about identity, and following on from that, the film has a bit of a different narrative structure of sorts where essentially everything we see is almost like a flashback, because after this we are introduced to Owen in the present day, played by Justice Smith, who basically says that they couldn't sleep last night because it was raining too loud, and they decided to put it back on their favourite TV show. And following on from that, throughout the film we see glimpses of Owen outside by a fireplace in the middle of the woods. Why is Owen doing this? We do not know yet. But after that, we flash back again into 1996 with young Owen, where their school is holding a vote for the 1996 election. Which, if you forgot who won that election, Owen's mum thankfully points out to vote for the funny saxophone man. So that should give you an idea of just to come up to speed. That's the election year just now. And we're also introduced to Maddie, who is seen reading a book of The Pink Opaque, the episode guide, which immediately gets Owen's attention. They begin talking to each other, and essentially Maddie convinces Owen to try and sleep over at their house to try and watch The Pink Opaque, as unfortunately Pink Opaque airs past Owen's bedtime, which as I'm about to say later on, Owen's parents, well, his mother is shown to be a very sincere and kind figure. His father, though, we'll be getting to shortly, not so much.
Does he, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if Owen's dad has any lines.
I was going to say that for later, but I suppose we'll mention that just now.
Sorry, spoilers.
But yeah, so we're introduced to Maddie, who convinces Owen to basically sleep over at their house, so that way they can watch Pink Opaque finally. But with regards to Owen's parents, we're introduced to their mother, who again seems to be a very, very sweet and sincere figure in Owen's life. The father, though, doesn't seem the greatest. And what threw me for a loop certainly was finding out that Owen's father is played by none other than Limp Bizkit frontman Fred Durst.
Really?
No, this is true. I checked this in the credits. Fred Durst plays Owen's dad. Yes, the guy who did Rollin', 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 and I Did It for the Nuki is in this movie.
I never realised that. Wow.
Yep. And as Jamie has mentioned, the father doesn't really have like much of a speaking role in the film, but his presence is definitely felt, as pretty much most of the time when we see him, he is on the couch with the TV in sort of this kind of standoffish state, disassociating, disconnected from Owen in his life. And the only time that Owen's dad ever speaks is this one line of dialogue, which pretty much tells you everything to know about his character and his role. And his only line of dialogue is, "Isn't that a show for girls?" Later on, when Owen asked if he can watch the show.
Yes, that's what it was.
Which, if you're the type of person who has ever taken interest in something that isn't, traditionally whatever gender you feel you are, is a line that definitely cuts deep.
Dagger through the heart, absolutely.
Yep. But yeah, so Owen essentially asked to go have a sleepover at like some other kid's house. We never see it, doesn't matter. And then in doing so, ends up going to sleep over at Maddie's house, in which we're then probably introduced to what the plot of the Pinkle Pig is. As I mentioned before, Town Isabel, secretly linked, Pinkle Pig, there's a man in the moon who's evil and controls reality and time, which sounds very weird, but I promise will become very important later on. Also, during this part where Owen is sleeping over at Maddie's house, there is like this one cool visual detail, which, for record, it's very hard to discuss this film in an auditory format because the visuals do a lot of the heavy lifting in this film, because like the colours and just the cinematography in general is so beautiful and it looks great. It really stands out.
It is. Like, pretty much every sentence that either of us say could be capped off by going, "You should just go look at it. Just go watch it. Just go watch it." You know.
We're trying to keep everything. We're kind of discussing the first half of the film up until the quick break at 12. After that, we will be getting to spoilers, but we're kind of already skipping to the conclusion of the program. But we do recommend this film. It's not for everybody. It has it's very unique. And it does have kind of a slower pace. It doesn't follow the traditional kind of narrative arcs you're used to seeing, as we will discuss. But we both highly recommend it, right? So,
yeah.
It's generally a fascinating, interesting film. But yeah, one little visual detail I like is the fact that in the room where Maddie and Owen are in during the sleepover, there's like this like glowing like empty fish tank just in the room that kind of lights up.
That.
I just really like that because in my experience, like when I was a kid, like visiting people's houses, there was, for some reason in my area, there was always like some kind of empty tank where some poor fish or reptile once lived. That
I tell you, every other week I was going to someone's house and they had an empty fish tank.
Can't tell if being sarcastic. Because in my experience, it happened a lot more often than you'd think.
Wow.
It's just like everyone had one, because it's just we're in, because I not to be that guy, but I came from I'm from not the most wealthy area, and it's just one of the things where it's like you were gonna just throw out that giant fish tank we paid like £100 on, or we're just gonna leave it as like a decoration, you know what I mean? So I don't know, I just as a little detour, I'm just like, I've been in places like that, I relate.
Even if you weren't a prolific fish tank house visitor, I do think it's just got this general sort of like night-like kind of feel. Like, I also, when I was younger, stayed over at friends' houses and they always had like little night lights or whatever like plugged into the wall. It's just generally got this really like contained kind of feeling to it. Like all the scenes that take place in Maddie's basement are all very like there's like just kind of like this space is safe. This space is warm and comfortable and has these like nice lighting and this all this sort of visual design.
Compared to a lot of times in movies where we see Owen back at their house, where oftentimes it kind of has this very foreboding feeling to it, whereas here everything is more kind of more quiet and feels a lot more chill. During this point, I will always take the moment to mention that we do kind of learn more about Maddie's home life, where based on what they tell us, it doesn't sound all that great. Back at the school scene, they mention how the parents don't care when they sleep, and then they tell Owen to leave at dawn, otherwise their stepdad will break their nose again. So, you know,
yeah,
not the best home life. And then before Maddie heads off as Evan's about to go to sleep, they do say one line in particular that it's going to become very relevant throughout the film. And they say to Owen, sometimes the pink opaque feels more real than real life. Which, you know, when it comes to the idea of kind of disassociation and kind of immersing yourself kind of in nostalgia in media, you know, it's a little true, not gonna lie. But yeah, it's also worth mentioning that when Maddie and Owen are watching the Pickle Pig, that is where the ice cream man pops up, as you mentioned earlier.
Yes, scary ice cream man.
Yep, two kids wishing, you know, why, how come, you know, they stop, you know, the ice cream man doesn't come round when it's winter time? I wish that the ice cream man was still here and ends up summoning a horrible...
huge, like 7 foot tall ice cream cone with a melting face.
Yeah.
Freaky guy.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned that was when you see the scenes of the Pickle Pig, the first thing your mind goes to is kind of Buffy. That's kind of what that was your Pickle Pig, was that.
Yeah, for sure.
In my experience, the thing that I kept thinking of especially when like that bit come out with the ice cream man, the thing I kept thinking of was Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark, which are both, you know, also Monster of the Week shows kind of geared at a younger audience, and I believe both of them were made during the 90s. So they have that very specific aesthetic, and also both at certain points absolutely scared me when I was younger. So that's kind of my Pinkle Pig, or at least in terms of nostalgia, is kind of specifically Goosebumps. I remember watching more often than not. And one point that I will mention with regards to, obviously, I'm not sure if this is true for Buffy, but I know that for Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark, one of kind of the prevalent occurrences in both the show and for Goosebumps, also the book. I don't think Are You Afraid of the Dark had books, could be wrong, but I know in both of these series, one of the things that keeps happening is that the adults are useless, right? Like the parents and police, they do not believe what the kids say, because that is sort of creates the tension in those books. The fact that the kids and the teens are kind of out on their own when dealing with this very personal threat, which is kind of an idea that kind of comes up in this film, especially later on when kind of revelation of what the Pink Omega truly means to Owen begins to kind of finally hit home. They do explicitly say that why should he not tell his dad or the police, which given how that doesn't really work out in these TV shows, probably wouldn't work quite well for Owen in this scenario either. So I just thought it was a very interesting connection. Again, I don't know if that's true for Buffy, for I know, the cops and that are very competent and are like, yes, vampires are real, let's deal with that.
I can't say that's the case. It's literally, it might be, I think, episode 1, I think it's in the pilot, where two of the characters figure out, vampires are real, and Buffy's like, no, we can't go to the police, what are they going to do, believe us? No. In Buffy it is very much the same, except for Giles, who is fantastic. He's like the one good adult. Adults are generally useless or accidentally getting in the way or actively out to get you.
So yeah, very interesting parallel. Also because that's another idea that's kind of presented, is this idea of later on when it becomes the idea of like the TV shows kind of beginning to bleed into reality, there is the idea of, if Mr. Melancholy is like this real entity, one of the things that they can do in the show is essentially, have people against you and to go against you, which, similar idea, you can't trust the adults around you, the people around you, or else there will be consequences. We also get a shot of a transition from young Owen to Isabel, so a very clean shot transitioning from the two, which sure has no significance later in the plot.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
No.
We then skip to 2 years later, where we see older Owen again played by Justice Smith, where we can see they're at a carnival, and we'll see that the mother has kind of fallen ill. We can see that her hair's gone, and she has like this bandana around it, which you can make the assumption that she potentially has going through chemo, and she's not doing too well. And she has this brief conversation with one where she says that you're always somewhere else, kind of further an idea that Owen is someone who's kind of mentally kind of distant, disassociative, and isn't quite on the same plane as everybody else. This is also where we get probably introduced to Owen's dad, who we mentioned, good old Limp Bizkit himself, who also quick mention, because I don't think I'll get an opportunity to mention this to anyone else, but aside from this movie, Fred Durst was also in Y2K, which I believe came out this year. Yep, he was in it, playing himself. I believe he also had a role in Zoolander, if I'm correct.
Wow.
And what's interesting of all, did you know that Fred Durst directed his own movie once?
When?
Quite recently. I believe, I want to say 2019, but I could be wrong. But it was around that kind of time frame.
I am so not up to date on the life updates of Fred Durst.
No, how could you? How could you? But yeah, so he directed a movie called The Fanatic, which in the lead role is none other than John Travolta, and essentially is a movie about this fanatic who's obsessed with this big movie star played by Devon Sawa, which if you've seen the first Final Destination or Idle Hands, you'll know who that is. He's played in other stuff, that's what I know him from. But
I need to watch that movie.
It's not a very good movie. It's infamous because I believe it made like under $100,000, which for a movie is sweet Jesus. And more importantly, it's the character John Travolta plays is meant to be disabled with what we do not know, but
okay,
it's a discussion for another time. It's definitely a worthy candidate for the show because it is a very fascinating film, but from much different reasons than this one's fascinating. So I just wanted to mention it.
Sort of in the way that an active train wreck is fascinating.
Exactly. But again, that's a story for another day. I just thought I'd mention that. But so following on from that, so Maddie and when I'm sort of kind of disconnected for a bit, Owen's saying that they're pretty much like too shy to basically like talk to him now. But Maddie continues to like leave tapes for Owen of episodes of The Pingle Pig so that they can still watch it. And we get this really beautiful scene soundtracked by Starbird and Unkissed by Caroline Palachuk.
She's great.
Where we see one walking down the school hallways with essentially like a marker is over the screen, and we see like basically the little notes that Maddie leaves on the tapes, giving us a bit of lore of the Pingle Pig. One of them, which was actually mentioned earlier in the film, towards the beginning, is the Drain Lords, where we hear a quote at the beginning where basically the rules for the Drain Lords are they can't hurt you if you don't think about them, which, again, disassociation, not thinking about the whole identity thing, kind of ties into that.
I really love the Drain Lords. They don't come up much, but which I won't spoil, but later on when they get mentioned again, it's so good and so well done. It's like just such a good, in some ways, all-use metaphor for so many things of just, if I don't think about it, then it's not happening, and it's not going to hurt me. And if I just pretend that nothing's happening, then it's fine.
Which I see as kind of Owen's main tactic for dealing with what's about to come. And what is actively coming at him, which that does not sound right on the air. Please don't take us off. But basically, so...
The horrors.
The horrors. Also, the other thing about Drain Lords is that they come from the drain, they come from the bathroom, which again, if you're transgender, you have some form of gender dysphoria. The bathroom is HE double hockey sticks, to say the least.
Evil place.
Very evil place. So interesting connection there.
I didn't even think about that. Did you think about that, or did you read that somewhere? You don't have to expose yourself on that if you don't want to. But if you thought of it, then it's really smart.
The toilet part, yeah, no, I just came up on the spot.
That's
I
smart.
didn't look that up. Yeah.
I didn't think about that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. I think I smart pants now. But yeah, so Owen gets hands on specifically the pilot episode, which they had not seen yet, where other interesting to mention about the Pink Opaque TV show that we see is that it explained that Isabel and Tara are psychically linked because of the Pink Opaque, but what's interesting is the fact that the only time they actually interact is in the pilot episode where they meet at sleepaway camp. But then we're told that every episode after that, they're both in completely different counties, but they still communicate via a psychic link. So they're apart, but they're still connected.
And if I remember correctly, when they quote unquote commune with each other via this sort of ethereal plane thing, it looks like they're together in the same place.
Yes, I believe that's how they represent it. Yes. What's interesting is during this the scene of Owen watching the tape, there's those two things. One is the fact that even though we were told that Owen hasn't seen the pilot episode yet, it's the first time watching it, they're somehow able to perfectly quote one of the parts of the episode, even though it's the first time watching it, which bit unusual.
Interesting. Yeah.
And also, in the scene that he's watching, Isabel is basically, exclaiming about how they don't understand this Pink Opaque thing and how they, what the deal with the psychic thing is. They say what's happening to me, how do I know these things, and the fact that Tara mentions that they knew Isabel was special just from seeing him in the dining hall. So these two characters are inexplicably connected by a thing that one of them does not understand, which is very interesting with regards to the looming metaphor over this entire film,
which we're going to get to, we promise.
Which we're going to get to. Also, important thing to mention. I think I actually skipped over this, but. Back at the previous sleepover scene, when Maddie's kind of discussing, that's one of the things I'll mention I love about Maddie's character is the fact that when they are talking about the Pink Opaque and their knowledge of it, I've been in discussions with friends that all has that same sort of energy to it. So the part I want to mention is when they're kind of discussing the difference between Isabel's character and Tara's character in the show. Maddie basically says that Isabel's a scaredy cat. They're technically the main protagonist, but they're a bit of a drip. But Tara's the cool one because they know about demonology, which, given the future events of the film, is kind of very interesting. As what becomes very obvious, if not obvious already, is the fact that both Owen and Maddie are connected to Isabel and Tara in the show, and from our perspective, Owen's kind of the main protagonist of the film, but compared to Maddie, Owen doesn't really do all the cool stuff. As you're about to see, Maddie's the one who kind of gets up to all the action and the interesting bits, whereas Owen is very much stuck throughout the film, disassociating, unwilling to change, which, given the fact that based on so basically what I'm saying is that when Maddie is describing both their characters, really they're semi breaking the fourth wall and basically talking about the Owen and Maddie's role in the actual film itself. Owen's the scaredy cat drip of a protagonist, whereas Maddie is the one who gets to do all the cool stuff.
Yeah.
But yet they're not in the centre stage. So I just think it's a very interesting little detail.
It is interesting, yeah.
And then we move on to the bleachers scene where Owen finally works up the courage to speak to Maddie, and quite a few things happen here where I don't even know where to start, especially since we're not even at the halfway mark yet. I stopped. So many notes. Oh god. Right. But basically, the main thing I want to discuss with these scenes is the fact that, first of all, Maddie admits to Owen that they like girls, to which Owen doesn't seem to have much of a reaction to, and then Maddie presses, do you like girls? Do you like boys? Owen replies with,
I like TV shows.
I like TV shows, which people say is very corny in trailers, which I guess. But then after Owen says that, they then talk about having this feeling that when he thinks about that stuff, it feels like someone dug out all of his insides, and that he knows nothing's there, but he's too afraid to check. Which, again, being a coward, disassociating, not wanting to confront, what's inside of him, not wanting to question it. Where the mere idea of, attraction, that's just something that he refuses to try and dwell upon.
Oh boy, when Owen said that line, that was one of my favourite standout parts. Is I still remember everything about that scene and how he just goes, I know there's nothing in there, but I'm too scared to look inside and check. It felt like it hit so really, hits close to home. Like when you know that there's something true about yourself, that there's some part of you that you're not addressing and you've been putting to the side and you've been going, I can just kind of worry about this later and come back to it and maybe it's nothing. It's a great line.
Yeah, and what's even more interesting is that after that, Maddie again makes the Isabel connection, where she says, you're like Isabel because Isabel's scared of you're scared of what's inside you. Again, creating that parallel that Owen and Isabel are connected, and there's a shared aspect there, as I mentioned earlier, which the film is clearly trying to draw attention towards. After that, we then get once again Owen unable to again watch the show at his house, which back during the scene in which Owen is watching the pilot episode. When he hears presumably his dad coming into the room, he has to eject the tape unceremoniously, again highlighting how Owen's dad doesn't seem like the best guy, which I thought was a bit of a neat detail, just further emphasising that.
That's good.
But yes, Owen's now sleeping over at Maddie's house again to watch the newest episode, and there's a very interesting scene this one little moment that kind of occurs where it's I believe it's actually the image they used for a lot of the streaming services to try and promote the film. And I also love articles where the shot is both Owen and Maddie are watching the episode. Owen completely stone-faced, just watching the show, disassociating, right in it. Maddie, however, is completely breaking down, just sobbing and in tears, with Owen not having a reaction to it, and this little moment is never really addressed as to why suddenly Maddie has this quite visceral reaction to watching the show. So since what's happening just now is basically we see Tara beat up a clown, which
I forgot that's what was happening.
that is what happens. I watched it last night, and that is exactly what they're watching, and it causes Maddie to have a breakdown. And I'm sure there's a lot of interpretations of what that means, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. But my personal kind of explanation of that moment is that for Maddie, that is the moment where they're oh, I'm not who I'm supposed to be. Because if you go and read stories online, you find that a lot of people's egg breaking moments, which for those who don't know, the idea of an egg and breaking an egg is a term in the trans community for basically when somebody realizes that they are trans. And a lot of the time, you read stories upon it, people will just have a realization, just watching a TV show and being damn, I wish I could, look like this person or this character. And I feel like that's what this thing's meant to represent, is that's kind of the moment where, Maddie finally realizes that, oh no, I'm not who I'm supposed to be, I'm not where I'm supposed to be, and that's realization. Whereas Owen, again, still hasn't figured this out, still very much in denial, does not want to check what's been dug out from inside of him.
Yeah.
And there's that clash. Would you agree, or do you have a different interpretation of that little moment?
I think basically the exact same thing. I think more specifically, I think that it sort of says something about how when it comes to not even just things to do with gender identity or sexuality or whatever it is, when it comes to big realizations about things in your life, there's never a good or eloquent or convenient or like positive time to have that realization. Like I remember that like my sort of moment when everything kind of clicked for me was when I was in the middle of class. I was fully in the middle of class in primary school, and like, well, I wouldn't suppose I'd say everything clicked, but like I just understood something in the moment. I was like talking with my friends, and I just understood something deeply in myself about how this isn't quite right, that none of this is right. I suppose that it's why, even though I forgot about it, I do like that watching this thing of Tara beating up a clown is like, yeah, like it doesn't have to be some sort of beautiful standing on the edge of a cliff looking into the sunset moment where you're, like Teardrop by Massive Attack's playing and you're like, oh, this is what it's all about. Like, no, it's, you realise who you are in the weirdest and strangest of places.
Yeah.
And I really like that scene.
Yeah, sometimes like these massive kind of life realizations, they don't come from, these very like, poetic and cinematic moments that we see, in movies, these big epiphanies. Instead, it can just be, you watch someone beat up a clown and you realise, damn, I'm not living the right life.
Yeah,
it just happens like that.
That's me, actually. That's me for real. I should be beating up clowns.
And adding on to this bit, afterwards, Maddie basically tells Owen that they both need to like leave this place, right? They cannot stay here, and in their words, I'll die if I stay here, which is something that is going to ring a little true later on. But they're like, yeah, we need to leave. Which Owen responds, who are they going to watch Pinkle Peak with? And then we get this very kind of oddly beautiful scene where essentially Maddie approaches Owen and proceeds to with like a pink Sharpie draw like the Pinkle Peak kind of logo on the back of Owen's neck, and it's this very quiet and like intimate moment where like all you can really hear is just the breathing and the sound of the mark, and it's this very tender, very beautiful scene that I absolutely hate in the theatre because people kept laughing, and it's like, no, it's a beautiful, gentle moment. How dare you?
Did they? Oh.
And well, some people did. I guarantee it was the old people. I know for a fact it was in the audience. Those old rich people, who probably came.
Those pensioners had it again.
They didn't get it, but but watching that scene at home, it does. Yeah, it's. I don't know. I really think it's a beautiful scene of these two characters connecting, in quite an untraditional way. And then after that, we see. Rather than the previous time Owen slept over at Maddie's, where Maddie went off to their separate room, this time Maddie stayed with Owen and like sleeps right beside them with Owen in their like little like sleeping bag. And after that, we see this visual of static as Owen begins to drift to sleep, which becomes quite a prevalent symbol later on of this. That is sort of like the sign of Owen beginning to like realize like who they are and what identity they truly desire and need to be. But after that, we immediately see Owen in the bathroom trying to scrub off that tattoo, and then decides to chicken out of Maddie's runaway plan and instead basically bail. And after that, we find out that from from Owen's present day narration that first of all, the mom's dead, unfortunate. This support figure is suddenly gone, and Maddie has also disappeared, with the only sign of their presence being a burning television set in the backyard. And then, just to add salt to the wound, the Pinkle Peak gets cancelled.
Oh no!
The horror. But yeah, once again we see Owen, rejecting their truth, running away, and as a result, almost as a cruel twist of fate from Mr. Melancholy, which we'll kind of discuss Mr. Melancholy more in detail later, but yeah, everything just ends up falling apart. And we then do another flash forward now 8 years later, where Owen has now left high school, is now working at a movie theatre, which, fun fact, was also a job that Jane Schoenbrun at one point had, working at a movie theatre. So
That's cool.
Connection there. Not much to this little bit here, other than we kind of get this sense that in this current moment in time for Owen, nobody really cares about them. The co-workers at work, well, first of all, there's a scene where they're trying to like go for a drive-through, and the guy on the other end is just being the worst. They're just not very cooperative, just not a very nice lad. Following on from that, being them working at the movie theatre, where we get kind of a small role from Connor O'Malley, of all people, who, if you've seen the show, I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson, or I think they also made an appearance in the movie Bodies, Bodies, you'll recognise.
Oh, right, yes.
So a very interesting appearance there as Owen's manager, who Owen walks in on with another lady, who I'm sure we're getting up to very PG activities, to which afterwards we see Owen's trying to enjoy lunch, but their manager bringing up and being like, oh, that girl, I bet, if you asked her, she'd like you, come on, man, and just kind of that, guy bro teasing, which, given that, what we kind of can guess from Owen isn't really, going back to the bleacher scene, isn't someone who's kind of traditionally into romance the same way as other people, or at least doesn't want to confront the question. It's a painfully awkward moment.
Yeah.
Made even worse when Conor O'Malley proceeds to, an almost kind of threatening tone, like say to Owen, why don't you look at me? Why don't you look at me like with your eyes? Which, eye contact. Which, if you're somebody who's neurodivergent, again, painfully relatable. Not fun. I can still, because I'm doing it just right now, like Jamie's right in front of me. You can't see this, folks, but Jamie's right in front of me and I'm still looking away because eye contact is just very scary.
Yeah, and also I've not blinked once.
Yep. That just was horrifying.
That's a joke, to be clear, that's a joke. I'm a normal human, I have eyes and I blink.
Well, we'll never know because I'm not paying attention. Maybe Jamie does need the desire to blink, which, is really threatening. Afterwards, we get a moment where, as Owen's trying to drive back home, there's this destroyed power line which they investigate and then find like a leaflet or a kind of pamphlet for the Pink Opaque, where it mentions Season 6, Episode 1, Escape from the Midnight Realm, which I should clarify, we learned that the Pink Opaque was cancelled at Season 5, so the fact there's a new season is very weird, and also doesn't really go addressed by Owen, so we're going to put a pin in that for later. And then finally, more time passes as we see Owen going grocery shopping at the world's dimmest looking grocery store, where they suddenly run into Maddie, who, in a terrifying twist, has returned with a leather jacket and a wolf cut. Which, if you know anything whether that means things are about to make a very big change.
It's all a sign.
Yep. And Maddie then proceeds to invite Owen to a bar on the outskirts of town, trying to explain things and where they've been and what's going on. And I think we're going to leave ourselves there for now as we go to break. We're now halfway through the film. After this, we'll be getting into spoiler talk. So if you want to go see this film without any spoilers, now you tune off now. Sorry, executives. Yeah. Go watch the movie. But as we go to break, we'll be talking about the second half of the film. So if you're wanting to hear more about Isolated TV Glow, stay tuned. Apologies for any technical difficulties there. Hopefully we should be all good now. I'm not getting a thumbs up from the executives, don't know if they're paying attention. For all I know, they've not been listening to a single thing we've said. But we're back from our quick break there. As a quick sponsorship though, well, I say sponsorship, but before we continue, just a quick shout out to, first of all, did you know that Terrible Taste has an Instagram page, and a YouTube page, and a TikTok? Instagram page in specific, we do highly recommend that you guys give us a follow at Terrible Taste Radio. Or I'll be posting updates on what episodes are coming next, as well as other bonus material. Gonna have little sort of mini video series called Terrible Taste: The Leftovers, where basically I'll discuss things that we couldn't quite fit into the show itself, which, given the many inspirations for ISO TV Glow, there'll be quite a lot to cover. So yes, at Terrible Taste Radio, give us a follow.
Is it, and also just generally picking your first guest, someone who can't help but yap. I'm famed for my tangents.
Yes, so there's gonna be a lot of fun stuff on there, so please give us a follow. Once again, at Terrible Taste Radio on Instagram, where it goes with the link tree, where if you want to be a guest, just like lovely Jamie here, then we do have a link tree in our bio where you can also sign up to be a guest and have your own suggestions for what media you want to cover on the show. You get no limits here. Movies, TV shows, books, games, music,
TTRPG systems,
tabletop role-playing games, whatever you want to discuss, we will have it on the show, as long as it is weird, interesting, dark, controversial. As long as it goes against the grain, it's here for the show.
No, I may be your number one, contender for the thing. I have such a long list of ideas.
So yeah, folks, get in here before Jamie ends up taking up all of the schedule for the next remaining shows. God, what's going on with my throat all of a sudden? But yes, at Terrible Taste Radio on Instagram. And of course, Jamie, we have you here. Is there anything you want to give a shout out to bring to the audience's attention?
Yes, there's a few things. Number one, obviously, member of the Audio Society. Go give us a follow on Instagram at something that I don't remember.
Is it perhaps
GCU.audio. We're GCU.audio on Instagram. We post stuff, we do workshops, we do little taster sessions, let people try out, all the audio equipment and stuff that's available in the uni. You don't have to be an audio tech student if you want to go take part in that. It's good fun, membership's pretty cheap, and also gives you access to a soon-to-come borrowing system for various audio equipment things. So that's first. Second, I'm doing Movember this year for the first time. Which again, you're just gonna have to trust me. There's no cameras, but I do have a mustache, and for it, I'm doing a run this Saturday coming. I'm going on a Movember sort of sponsored run, and I've been raising funds for it over on my donation page, which you can find under Jamie Sheeran on the Movember website, which is SHEERIN, not AN. People always spell it as AN, but it's IN. Movember's, super important to me. I think men's mental health is something that's not discussed enough. Mental health and physical health. People have a lot of anxieties around talking to people about their problems, whether that be, stress and anxiety, or just going to the doctor. It's a weird, stressful thing, and it has a lot of shame that's been sort of, connected to it in society for a long time. So yeah, it's just something very close to my heart, and would super appreciate the donations. Also, if you donate today specifically, any donations of £20 or more get doubled by, I believe it's Gillette is the connected sponsor today, is doing some sort of doubling of donations. So go search my page, check it out. It would be very appreciated.
That's quite fascinating. And is it true that if you get to a certain threshold that you will receive the greatest prize of all, and that is a pair of socks?
It is true. Yeah. I'm £3 off, I believe. I'm £3 off getting a pair of socks. And also, more than that, it means that I'll be invited to some future sort of talks and different events that people run throughout the year, not just in November, that promote men's health and men's mental health and these sorts of things. So that would also be great. But socks, I love weird socks. I've currently got socks that have a bunch of constellations and stars on them. They're purple. I love some weird socks. So donate for all of the good benefits and the people it helps, and also to get me a pair of socks.
So yes, folks, do please donate to Jamie's fundraiser to support men's mental health. I will be putting a link to Jamie's page both on our YouTube and also our Instagram. If you just check the bio. Again, £3 will, even just £3 will reach a very substantial threshold. So please do support the campaign, and of course, help this lovely man get a new pair of socks, because that's the main thing at the end of the day, isn't it?
That's what it's all about. Yeah, thank you. Very appreciated.
Yep, so feel free to donate, and yes, again, Terrible Taste Radio on Instagram. Donate to James' campaign.
Great.
Put somebody in the world. Now, back to the movie. So last we were left off, Owen has reunited with Maddie. They were at a bar on the outskirts of town. We had at the bar currently playing is Sloppy Jane, as well as Phoebe Bridges with the song Claw Machine.
My fave. I was going to say that's the one pop culture reference that I recognise and can mention in this movie. Is when I saw Phoebe Bridgers come on, I was like, oh my god! I love Phoebe Bridgers, and that song's fantastic.
It is a fantastic song. It is very interesting because from what I read, the idea for the song Claw Machine is about friendships between Jane and Sloppy Jane, as well as Phoebe Bridges. Which again, this is the moment of Owen and Maddie reconnecting. That's kind of the main drive of that song. And yeah, it feels very appropriate for the moment. So in this one we get quite a bit of exposition about what exactly has been going on this entire time. But to try and summarise to the best of my ability, so Maddie talks about how, about Owen's memory of the Pinkle Pig, if he remembers it as just a TV show, which, as they mentioned, we do get kind of brief flashbacks of memories that we have not seen yet, where we can see Owen trying on a pink dress, and I think the only scene where we actually see Maddie smile throughout the entire thing, where they see Owen try on the dress and they smile, which again, not something we've seen before, the which no one, why do I keep doing that? In which Owen has previously left out of this story that they're telling. Then Maddie begins to kind of explain how the idea that memory and time isn't right, how everything's kind of just been shaken around like a snow globe. Again, put a pin in that for later.
We're slowly forming a big corkboard covered in little pins.
Yep. And yeah, again, that idea of kind of memories and time of flame, right, getting fits into that idea of kind of, I keep mentioning disassociation. That's because, for me anyway, I think that's one kind of like the prevailing kind of ideas in the movie, is the fact that, Owen has begun disassociating like kind of from reality and their identity, trying to kind of dodge the question and the reality of it. And as a result, kind of their memories, especially this one of the pink dress, which again, because this movie is not necessarily about being transgender, is quite a pivotal moment for him. But the memory is faded, because the way it's presented is it's shot in this kind of grainy like VHS style, which comes back later on. So this is something that Owen has repressed. And then Maddie begins to explain how, while they were gone for 8 years after fleeing their house, they had apparently gone inside the show. And I would also like to mention that during this bit, we can kind of see that as Maddie explains all to Owen, Owen's kind of visibly quite shaken by all this. And that's where he starts beginning to, we should tell somebody, I should tell my dad, I should tell the police, tell somebody. Going back to what we were speaking about earlier before the break. And during all this, we can hear like the sound of like an amp being plugged in, like that, the buzzing sound, which kind of further adds kind of the tension of the scene, which I thought was just a really cool detail. After that, we're shown a performance of the song Psychic Wound by King Woman, which again is kind of this very quite. I don't want to say quite a dark song, but it's a song that's kind of about one of the lyrics specific is a voice that I can't deny, and being chained to someone.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of that fear of connection, which is kind of what Owen's experiencing right now.
It's certainly, even if you don't focus on the lyrics of it, it really is in quite stark opposition to the song that was on before, very kind of soft and insightful, kind of melancholic Phoebe Bridgers type sort of song, and then it's like thrashing guitar and all this stuff, and it's like adds to that feeling of like, what is happening? This can't like be real. I think it really, really adds to it.
And then following on from that, Maddie talks about that one of the last tapes that they sent to Owen was of the very final episode, the season finale for season 5 of The Pink Opaque, which is now the part where we kind of get into, we've mentioned that, the antagonist of The Pink Opaque is this entity called Mr. Melancholy, and I think now is about the time where we kind of get into what is a Mr. Melancholy, why is this, if the movie has a direct antagonist, Mr. Melancholy is it, but as I've mentioned prior, this movie is again very heavily leaning on kind of metaphor, and it's all very surreal. So you can interpret it as Mr. Melancholy is like an actual entity that exists in the real world and is affecting all this and causing all these strange things to happen, or it's a good old metaphor for depression and just the general ills of the world, this kind of other force rather than a literal cosmic being. Because what in the show Mr. Melancholy's thing is that he wants to have 100 hearts of 100 awkward kids, for God's sake, Blair. He wants 100 hearts of 100 awkward kids so that way he can have eternal night, an eternal blooming doom. And as we see during this final episode, what ends up happening is that Mr. Melancholy is able to lure out Isabel back to the sleepaway camp where Isabel and Tara first met, to which Mr. Melancholy proceeds to is taking out the hearts and giving both Tara and Isabel something called Luna Juice. What is a Luna Juice? It's not made quite clear, but seemingly it's something very bad and seems to cause the people who consume it to be put into this sort of weird, dazed state, almost like they're disassociating. Again, emphasizing that point. And we see as before we see what we end up seeing next is that we finally see kind of Mr. Melancholy in the flesh. Essentially, this tall individual in a suit with this weird kind of constantly changing moon head, where they basically, going back to the snow globe, basically explain how when someone's consumed this mystical Luna juice, it'll kind of cause people's reality and sense of time to begin, changing, almost like it's being shaken around in a snow globe, where we're given a very direct visual in which we see not Isabel's memories, but Owen's memories inside the snow globe. Inside the snow globe, we see the very first part of the film where young Owen is watching the TV. It then gets scrambled. We then get a shot of, again, the scene where the trans flag parachute, that gets shaken. These memories of, potential early realization are shaken around and effectively forgotten. And one horrifying thing Mr. Melancholy says is specific is that it'll cause the person to, specifically Isabel, will cause Isabel to won't even remember that they're dying. Which, going back to what Maddie said about feeling like they're dying if they didn't move out of the town.
I've two big things to say about the scene with the final episode. Number one, if I had like a pillow on me, I'd be hiding behind it the whole time. Terrifying.
Yep.
Mr. Melancholy is so scary. His weird, big, shifting face and like it's all shot on like such tight camera angles. It's so like scares me so bad.
It's very uncanny. Yeah.
Really, really, yeah. Then again, I am a bit of a coward. But mainly the bit when he holds this snow globe up and it shows all of Owen's memories, it's like I felt my heart fall out my chest. Like, it's so...
Just like what Mr. Melancholy would have wanted.
Yeah, it's so deeply impactful of like, oh my lord. Like, it just feels like such a punch in the face. And, well, I mean, I would say you're burying the lead a little bit, but that's kind of ironic.
Yeah.
The big thing, they're being buried alive.
Yes.
And it's scary.
That's the ultimate fate of what happens to Tara and Isabel in the finale, where both of them are effectively buried alive after the consumption of this, Luna juice, which, there's a thing in the trans community thing called a dead name, where, more often than not, when you're transgender, you change names, and then your previous name for your previous, gender identity, that's gone. We will speak of that. It's gone. It is dead and buried, and so. Having these characters quite literally, buried alive, it does kind of bear some parallels, kind of that idea of kind of burying this identity. However, sorry, go on.
And also, a note is something we didn't bring up because it wasn't really relevant. Throughout the film, it's been shown that Owen has symptoms of asthma.
Oh yes.
And at first, when I started watching the film, I was like, "Oh, that's great," because I have asthma too. I was like, "Oh, that's cool. A little bit of asthma representation. That's fun." And it was only when this scene came up that I went, "It's not asthma. He's buried alive." Oh, and like it suddenly all like clicked and made sense. It was just crazy.
Yeah, that suffocating thing of like being trapped in kind of the wrong identity is kind of shown like through Owen's asthma. Because unfortunately, it's kind of like a throwaway kind of like character thing where it's first introduced when Owen's mother drops him off for his first sleepover, where she mentions, don't forget your inhaler. You think, okay, so this this kind of dorky kid has asthma, great. But then, when we find out about, the connection to Isabel and this kind of idea of, being buried alive and suffocating, it kind of makes it play a new role and its implications of what it truly represents. What's also interesting about the scene of the final episode is the fact that going back to the scene of the pink dress, that's originally, we first really see it kind of in this, like very choppy VHS quality with all the grain, but then it slowly becomes like a regular film, in high quality. That same technique is then used here, but what ends up happening is at first, Owen's POV is shot normally, whereas stuff in the pink opaque, which every time we see the pink opaque at this point has been shown like this kind of VHS, 90s style, very grainy.
And with like the audio to match as well.
Yeah, the
so
audio's
it's kind of
muffled.
lo-fi sort of quality to it.
But then during this scene, suddenly begins to kind of swap over where Owen's, as he watches the film, begins to kind of take on that grainier VHS quality, but then the stuff in the show begins to look more like a regular film, begins to look more real, like that what's truly happening. And afterwards, we get, to make things even more harrowing, we see as after the episode is concluded, we hear like Owen's raspy breathing, from his album before suddenly we see as essentially Owen has like plunged their head into the TV and it's static. Fred Durst comes down and proceeds to rip them their head from out the TV, and then we see as he essentially forces Owen like over a bathtub with like steaming water, almost trying to like cleanse him. As Owen kind of shouts in vain, this isn't my home, you're not my dad. It's all the fact that like before we get to the final episode scene and then like this right after, it's just so just incredibly like harrowing. And the bit with the hot water obviously kind of parallels the bit from before where Owen is trying to scrub off the tattoo. It's trying to kind of like remove his blood identity, trying to like in this case like forcefully like separate him from it. As I mentioned before, the static is meant to symbolize kind of like that realization of being trans and living your true identity. Owen trying to like plunge himself into it and embrace it, but then his father really ripping away from it and then forcing him to cleanse it away. it hurts. It
Crazy.
hurts. It's such a very horrible moment, but
It's like even if you don't think like even if you're not the kind of person who necessarily can connect to that metaphor, even if you don't feel like that sort of resonates in your life, it is still such a demonstration of just good movies, just good like film. Like watching it is just feels like all of your organs are just getting like mushed about. Like it feels crazy to watch it.
Yeah.
It's so well done, and it's got so much artistic direction to it that I don't even know or understand or can comment on. But it's such a brilliant scene.
Yeah, you're invested. You're feeling emotions, and to top it all off, as Owen's being shot with all the steaming water, suddenly they begin to vomit the static. And as they do so, we don't hear Owen screaming or shouting, we hear Isabel screams. This other identity is only being purged from them in the most, most obvious way imaginable. After that, we then get to we then get a kind of an explanation of what exactly has Maddie been doing these past 8 years. They at the bar they told Owen tomorrow night to meet them in the gymnasium. And we now see that they've set up like this once again that similar kind of parachute structure, but this time it's kind of been converted into like this kind of like observatory, where there's like projectors of constellations. Planetarium, sorry. But it's a parallel to the parachute, but this time it's now taking on like a different form. It's transformed, if it were, which I believe actually at the beginning of the film, I know I'm backtracking a bit here, but at the very beginning, during again that school scene, there's a line from Maddie where they do mention how it's very interesting when stuff like elections happen. It's almost like the school transforms. And now we see the parachute is now transformed into the planetarium.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we get Maddie's side of the story where they say how they moved out of town, they changed their name, which we've only been kind of discussing kind of the idea of the characters' names, etc. Especially since we were talking about a movie that the characters' true identities is kind of left what the metaphor is. But I'm going to assume that at this point Maddie's we don't actually find out what Maddie's new name is, because later on they mentioned that Maddie's not my name, but we can probably infer that it's probably Tara. And what's interesting as well is that their actor Jack, following this movie, did actually come out as non-binary. They themselves changed that name. So for now, I am going to assume that at this point, essentially, Tara is basically non-binary, which I think that's what they've used they pronouns this entire time for them. I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right, again, please don't cancel me. So that's the first show. I'm trying my best. Basically, yeah. So Tara, they went to they stayed at a hostel. Then moved again. They also mentioned that they at one point had a job at Build-A-Bear. And then again, they mentioned the idea that time wasn't right. That it was moving too fast. One line in particular, is that they specifically say that it was like chapters skipped over in a DVD. This idea that time was passing too fast, and because they weren't living their true self, it was like time just kept moving on and on and on, and the fact that this isn't how life is supposed to feel. And it kind of is that kind of idea that they need to kind of transition, start living your true self in order to try and live life to the fullest. And they describe how essentially they paid a burnout kid to essentially literally bury them alive, and they say how the thought process at the time was half of them was like this is crazy, this is insane, as a form of trying to escape, because they basically say that if I keep moving, then nothing's going to change. I need to do this. So there's a part that is just into that, like, this is crazy, this is absurd, you're making this huge change. And the other half is saying that this was survival, this is about truly living. They then go on to describe how while they were buried, they started to kind of bang against the coffin, apologising and begging for someone to save them. And this is, again, we're going to put a pin in that.
Yeah.
The idea of screaming against people and begging for help, but no one coming. And then they then mention, another important thing is that when they do mention the family coming out of that grave, they essentially describe it as like if they were watching a TV set that was their life, and then they begin to move further and further away till eventually they couldn't see the TV set anymore. It was a new life, which, given the fact that, because it's easy to forget, but this entire movie is actually one giant flashback. There's maybe a recount from present day Owen on all these events, because some of the information I've discussed is given from Owen through. Why do I keep doing that? Noah and Owen sound nothing alike, but yeah, Owen gives like narration at times to kind of remind us that, okay, this is all a story that's been told. As we got one long flashback, which again, the idea of you're seeing life as basically like from a TV set and being like a spectator, which is the mindset that one still currently is in.
It really, really adds to it, I think. Like, as you mentioned before, towards the start of the show, is like there's this really big feeling of the pacing in it is very bizarre in some ways. Like, it's really non-standard, and I think this whole sort of flashback thing really, really adds to it. It just feels like disorienting, but in a way that works. You know, it's all very like sort of time jumps from section to section, and it's all like, you know, you get enough glimpses as to these sort of parts of his life to understand what's going on, but it really adds to that feeling that everything's rushing by, you know?
Yeah.
Very, very good.
So yeah, they recount it as, you know, waking up from this bad dream, and I do agree with you that it does kind of add a lot of this sort of this perspective that the terror has upon kind of waking up in this, what you describe as this new reality, this kind of new elation of finally feeling free and being in their own identity. They then begin speaking to Owen, or in this case Isabel, directly, that, you know, that this is now the season 6 premiere. You know, they came back to save Isabel and to make things right, but Owen still has absolutely no clue on what's going on, just still completely in denial about everything that Maddie is saying. And they specifically say, you know, to Owen that, you know, the longer you wait, the closer you get to suffocating. As kind of throughout all this, kind of that again, as I mentioned about the asthma, the breathing getting worse, getting more shallower and harsher. You know, the time for Owen is beginning to kind of shorten down more and more. And I will say, I think, again, going back to the first time I saw this in the GFT, again, because people, I think there was a particular line from where Owen says something to the lines of, you know, this isn't, you know, a TV show, this is just the suburbs, and people kind of laughed. And at the time in my head, because I was still very much in that same space as when I'm like completely in denial about anything being different with me, this is all normal, I'm like, yeah, Owen's right, everything that this, you know, person's saying is absolutely mental, like what is going on? So I was fully on Owen's side at that point, and then we get to the part where Maddie takes Owen out to the big football field, same bit where the bleachers were, basically tells him, you know, this is the part where Owen needs to, you know, bury themselves and come out as Isabel, to which, going back to the Drain Lords, that's where Owen begins muttering that phrase again, you know, I can't hurt you if you don't think about it.
Exactly. It's why I love the Drain Lords thing so much. It's so... it's just it just is so perfect. It's exactly how I felt in so many things in my life. It's just like, if I put this away in a neat little box and I just kind of pretend this isn't happening, I'm sure I can live my life and it'll be normal and fine, you know. But I think generally, everything about the burying yourself alive to like become this true self is such a good metaphor because not to get sad, but the UK as a whole is a hard place to be for trans people at the moment. It is a tough place, and there's a lot of people, a lot of misconception that people believe that if you make it too easy to transition, then people will just be doing it on a whim.
Yeah.
But the truth is transitioning, at least in my experience, it feels a hell of a lot like trying to bury yourself alive. It is the hardest thing. It is certainly one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. Working up the courage to transition it's like staring doom in the face, trying to address it. It is so daunting and massive and feels larger than life, but it is, you gotta do it,
Yeah, because it doesn't become as prevalent later, I think, when we can get close to kind of discussing the ending, where it's like that, it can be like such a big, shift, especially because it is true, like especially here in the UK, there's like a lot of false assumptions with regards to, a gender identity and, being transgender, and so there is, when you do make such a big change, and why it is so scary is because there's going to be pushback, there's going to be like a lot of, differences that it's in the current state, unarguably can make your quality of life suffer, but it is possible to find community especially during these times and to push forward and to live your true self, because ultimately the mental health toll that comes from not kind of living your true self and becoming stuck with this this body and this identity that you do not feel happy with, the consequences, it can be just absolutely devastating, and tragically that's the path that Owen somewhat ends up taking, where Tara holds Owen's hand before trying to take him towards the burial spot, but then Owen tackles Tara to the ground and just bolts, once again taking the coward's way out, running away, as Tara's left all alone on the football field. And we see that Owen waited, essentially shutting themselves inside their home, waiting for Tara to come back to kind of force them into that spot to bury this identity and live their truth. But Tara never arrives. Doesn't happen, and we then, time begins to kind of fly by again. We don't even get a title card. We know that time's moved on. Tragically, Fred Durst has now died. I guess not tragically, because in this movie he was kind of not a very nice man, to put it lightly. He's dead. Owen's inherited the house. Apparently Owen now has a family of their own, which we never see, by the way.
Nope.
Owen mentions it right to the camera, and we never see them. And in that same moment, we see as they've replaced their old TV set with like a brand new LG flat screen, which is maybe one of the most depressing bits of product placement I've seen, as Owen holds the book and says, I've got kids of my own. I love them more than anything. And then just drag the TV set, the new LG TV flat screen into the house, the smile dropping, just dragging it in like it's their grave. It's horrible.
I mean, you got to get that you got to get that funding from somewhere.
God, I'm just seeing how much time we've got there, because still so God, there's the last bit. There's so much to cover. But one thing I definitely want to mention is that during this sequence of time flying by, we do get this quote from Owen that I think just kind of perfectly summarizes kind of the themes of the movie and kind of like what it's trying to say. And I'm just going to read it out in full. What if I really was someone else? Someone beautiful and powerful, someone buried alive and suffocating to death very far away on the other side of a television set. But I know that's not true. That's just fantasy. Kids stuff. And I think for me, first time in the theatre, because again, as I mentioned before, I was completely on Owen's side, but because I was still in denial, and I'm like, yeah, Owen's right, this person's crazy, this whole sounds insane, I think Owen's doing the right thing. But then we get to that quote, it's just fantasy, it's kid stuff, that's when what the film was trying to say, trying to convey, really hits. And we then also get probably the most beautiful shot of the film, which I am absolutely kicking myself I didn't put in the Instagram post promoting this episode, where we get a moment where Owen is walking through a neighbourhood, and then there's this big giant chalk mural on the ground, and in the chalk we see the words "There's still time" written in bright letters, which when we get to discussing the ending hopefully shortly, is a very important statement, both for this film and I think directly from the filmmaker themselves, Jane Schoenbrun.
It's that whole sequence was the first time I saw the movie. That was certainly when I cried the hardest. Was because I was having like the polar opposite reaction of you. I was like, it's like I wish I could just reach through the screen to Owen and just shake him and be like, you know who you are, you know what this is, like you understand that this isn't real. And seeing the "There's still time" on the ground just made me like really struck something in me, and I just immediately welled up with tears. There was when I was younger and I was starting my transition, there was a support group that I went to that was run by LGBT Youth Scotland, which was a fantastic group for trans people, and it was incredibly helpful. And that group was open to people ages 13 to 25, I want to say. So there was quite a big, it was still on the younger end generally, but there was a bit of like sort of age spread, and every person I ever talked to there, all of them had this same, uniting kind of feeling of like, I just wish I'd figured out sooner. I wish that I understood who I was when I was younger. And I feel like I think everyone I've ever talked to who I've known before they've started their transition has in some sense mentioned, I feel like I'm too late. Like I feel like I'm too old to do this. And I felt the same way when I was 14, starting hormones. I was like, I was just too late. I already started, puberty. There's no point. I won't do anything. It's all hopeless. But I think it's one of the most brilliant messages of the film is that there is still time. Like it is never, ever, 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 ever going to be too late to try and be who you are.
And because Jane Schoenbrun themselves, I believe, if I remember, they didn't kind of fully transition until when they were in their 30s, which, people might think, you start transitioning, when you're in your 20s, but, Jane did it later on, and, seemingly they're very happy in their identity, and the fact that they are spreading kind of this message in this film, I think, is just a generally very beautiful thing, and I think does mean a lot to those who are still trying to find their identity and to get up reassurance, because yes, there is still time, and there are plenty of examples of people who, even in their 60s or 70s, have made that change and are the better for it. And again, with all kind of the news and rhetoric and kind of controversies on transgender identity and policies, in the UK and in the States as well. Just having that message, just there is still time, just it means so much. I think it's just such a beautiful thing in this film.
Absolutely. It's tears. Every time I've watched it, I've been in tears.
No, because that was the moment where on my third watch was when I can't remember when the other two times was when I cried. The second time I watched it, but on the third time, the only time I did cry was just seeing that message, because to me it just is so beautiful and it means a lot. I won't go on this next part too much, but basically we cut back to the present. Finally, we're done with the flashback stuff where Owen gets back to the story they started all at the beginning. I was raining outside, so I thought I'd put on my favourite TV show, and good news, Pig is now on streaming. All the episodes are available finally. You don't even need a disc. And also, going back to the Goosebumps thing I mentioned, in the list of episodes we see, one of them is about an evil dummy. And Goosebumps slapping a dummy. So cool. There is a connection there. I'm not crazy.
There's also a great, not tangent, there's a great dummy episode in the first season of Buffy.
Okay, alright.
Well, it just reminds me, because there's a, spoilers for episode 8, season 1 of Buffy, there's an episode where there's a ventriloquist dummy that's been possessed by a monster slayer. and he's like this weird, tough New York guy who's stuck in a dummy. It's very funny.
I guess Buffy's a little more wild than I thought. I thought it was just about vampires.
No, it's mostly actually not about vampires. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, a lot of non-vampires.
But yeah, for this streaming scene, I won't dwell too much on it, but I think the two interpretations that we can have is that either, going off of the idea that, Mr. Melancholy is an actual entity who is changing Owen's perception of reality. This is then basically literally like changing the show where any thoughts and feelings that one would have like kind of had for it reflecting on their identity and are being gone because now the show has basically been changed to now be like this really kiddie show where now Ice Cream Man looks so horrified at the beginning is now just a silly little guy who's just so sad that he can't serve ice cream during the winter, and instead he should start serving soup. It's all very goofy and very unlike the kind of more...
It's very like, it's gone from being like for 15-year-olds to like for 5-year-olds.
Yeah, it's really tragic. So you can interpret it that way, or you can interpret it the way where, there's that thing of, there's this, show used to like terrify when you're younger and you had all these emotions, but then you watch as an adult, it's like, this is some goofy stuff, like what?
Yeah, this is nothing.
I could punt that dummy, like, why was I so scared of this when I was like 5? What's going on? So it could also be that, again, just that, that derealization and just trying to, like, distance yourself from, like, these things when I was younger that made me, have all these emotions and nostalgia, that's all gone now. I'm going to push it down. And I think specifically when Owen's talking about, getting this new TV and having a family, they mentioned that, it's time to be a man. It's going to be the man in the house, this is what I'm meant to do. And then we then cut 20... Oh, before I cut to that, we also, going back to when Owen was by the fireplace, given the fact that one of the last things that Tara left before they disappeared was a burning TV set, and they spend so much time in the present, just waiting by this fire, it is again kind of the idea of just waiting for someone to come back, specifically Tara, to kind of put them back into, that grave and to kind of, kill his identity and, bring back the new truer one. But, never arrives, as we see Owen put out the flames, and they go onto streaming and see that their favourite show is now kiddie stuff. And we then see as, again, their breathing gets harsher and worse, and there's the suffocating feeling of like not living a true life before we cut 20 years later, where after the theatre they worked at kind of fell apart, they then got a new job thanks to their manager, Conor O'Malley, now working at a fun centre, as we cut 20 years later, which is when when I first time watching it is when really like the spirits sunk lower. I'm like,
yeah.
Owen's in like the back room unpacking, these like ball pit balls. They're old. Their breathing's even worse. They've got chapped lips. The worst chapped lips I've ever seen on screen.
It was something very impressive. There's only, 2 actors for Owen throughout the whole thing. There's a young Owen, and then the rest of it is all the same guy.
Yeah.
It's crazy how different he manages to look from like every point in time.
And what's interesting as well is that the actor for Maddie / Tara, or not Tara in the show, but Tara in reality, that's the same actor throughout. Jack played all versions of Tara, who also, I think every time we do see them, from the first sleepover to the second sleepover, and then, wolf cut and leather jacket, peak non-binary energy, they look different every time, but still the same actor. But
the costuming, makeup people did a fantastic job.
It's just amazing. Cause we didn't even talk about the fact there's like practical effects, because Mr. Melancholy has like these 2 minions called Marco and Polo, and they have like these like horrible like prosthetics that look amazing. God, there's so much to discuss.
Horribly amazing prosthetics.
But we hear this very pivotal scene, but I think maybe my favourite scene in the whole film, aside from obviously that the bit with the chalk, and that is this party scene, because this is the moment that made me have a pit in my stomach in the theatre, and that is essentially where this old shovelled up version of Owen is working at his birthday party, and Conor O'Malley comes in, he's got a birthday cake, it's Charlie's birthday, we all got to sing happy birthday, and everyone's like loudly clapping and cheering, And we get to kind of see, like, in the back, Owen's slow realization of, this is not where I'm supposed to be, this is not the life I'm supposed to be living, this is not the body I'm supposed to be in. And they just break down. They start screaming and not hollering, but everyone around them is just completely frozen still, no reaction, no empathy, no nothing, just screaming to no one, begging for someone to save them, that they're dying. And to really just top it all off, at the very last moment, they literally scream out, like, for their mother, who at this point has been dead for decades now, but this mother who's supportive of him is gone. Tara is gone. Everyone in their life is gone that could potentially give them some sort of care and support. They are on their own to a very uncaring world, which either through a malevolent entity's influence or just the bare nature of reality, no one comes to save them, and it's horrible. But then there's a silver lining where we see Owen is retreated into the bathroom, and they take a box cutter from earlier and metaphorically cut open their chest, and they see in the mirror that inside them is still that static from the TV set and from the sleepover, that awakening, the realization that their true self, their identity is still there within them. Even after all these years and all denial, it's still there. And Owen smiles before gets the vest back on, gets the shirt back on, back out into the arcade, and proceeds to just apologise to everyone from the party, with no one giving a reaction or response. But for suddenly cut to credits, and that is the end of the movie. And hopefully if you've been listening intently this entire time, you've probably noticed that this movie doesn't have a very traditional structure. Because normally you follow a protagonist who changes and goes on a journey, whereas here we've got a person who's essentially been in denial and scared and confused the entire movie. At the very end, when they make that realization that what they should have done. A very interesting way to look at it is, obviously, I mentioned earlier about the idea of kind of body horror, where the idea of body horror is that it's out of your control, you're constantly shifting and changing. But here we were seeing the reverse of that. We were seeing the horror of stagnation, of not changing, and sort of the consequences for that. As in Owen's refusal to change, time has gone by so fast, and they make that horrifying realization that they're just not happy. And what's interesting as well is that this ending sequence was actually meant to be longer. Like, in the script, it was supposed to be, Owen's apologising to everyone in the arcade before, they go out the door, it pans up to the sky, and then we cut. But Jane wanted to cut it shorter because it kind of leaves on that more kind of ambiguous note, and kind of gives that shock to the viewer of, if you're in a position of you're not living your true self, even if you're not transgender, if you're just in a position in life where you're unsatisfied with your current predicament and how things are going, that's your wake up call to change.
I do want to ask.
Yep.
Do you? Because it was one of the I don't think I necessarily saw too much debate necessarily about the theming of this movie online, except for there was very few. I remember when I left the theater, I went on Google and I was like, what do people think about it? And I did see a small handful of people on Reddit and similar places who were like, this movie's not about being trans, what are you on about? And those people are comedic. But the main split I've seen is that the ending of the movie is very divisive, because some people think it's a happy ending and some people think it's not. What do you think it is?
My current standpoint is I think it is not either or. I think it's bittersweet, where I am of the belief that, because again, given we've discussed that Jane Schoenbrun is someone who wrote this as they were transitioning at a fairly late time in life, in the fact that, again, why would you go on that journey and you literally have it like bright letters, there is still time, and then end the film by saying that, no, it's too late, yep, you're going to die old and wrinkled in a body that you don't want, in a life that you don't want. So I think it's just the case of, giving that satisfying conclusion. It doesn't quite give you that shock to the system for you to make your own kind of changes in life. So by having it where, Owen's realising, that spark, that, Isabel is still inside him, that possibility for change is still there to, wake up from this kind of dissociative state. The fact that it's still there, I think is kind of, and again, there is still time. To me, I feel like it's a bittersweet ending where we don't see, as the viewer, Owen making that change, but I think it's very implied that eventually they do. It's just, given the fact that they've got this job and these co-workers, and again the family, so the family is even real because again, you never see them. So again, it's the idea of there's all this stuff around you in life where making that transition, it's not easy, but I feel like one does have the potential to still make that change. It's just don't see it because otherwise you wouldn't get that same shift in the audience, I suppose. It's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I think I'm probably with this. I remember when I first came out of the cinema after watching it, I was like, it's a sad ending. Because to me, the way I first interpreted it was as Owen was sort of like power walking through this crowd of people and apologising to everyone. I was like, he's shutting it all back up again. Even after looking inside and seeing this sort of truth and trying to open it up and being like, this is still in me. It's all like hidden again and covered up, and he's just marching around and apologising to people. And I was like, oh, damn, it's a sad ending. But I think it was after the first rewatch I had of the film, I was like, no, I do think this is a happy ending, especially with all there is still time is like the core real theme of it. And so in my head, I think Owen, Isabel marches straight out that door and finds the first mound of dirt in the ground and jumps in.
Okay, a lot of this does go back to Tara's speech during the kind of planetarium scene where they do talk about how I mentioned this earlier, but you're screaming out for somebody to help you, but then nobody arriving, because ultimately when it does come to these like sort of decisions in life, it does come down to you yourself and having to make that change. That's the thing about life. The beautiful thing about life is you can do anything you want. The horrible thing about life is that you can do anything you want. It has to be you. Somebody else can't make you transition as much as people online make you want to believe. And it's ultimately down to like your choice and your decision to make that change in life, whether it is being transgender or quitting that job you hate, or moving out of that the hometown that's suffocating you. Whether it is, it's about making that change. And one last detail I would like to mention, because I forgot to earlier on, is the fact that back to the planetarium scene, one of the things that Tara mentions upon awakening as their true self is that one of the first things they heard was rain. Because rain, again, we hear it again when Owen says they couldn't sleep last night because of the rain. So the rain's a persistent thing.
Yes.
So the first thing they hear as soon as they awaken is rain. Then over their credits, you can, very faintly in the background, you can hear the sound of rain, which again adds the idea that at some point Owen does make that change and does become Isabel, now moving into this, now more truer reality, no longer disassociating, now fully living and no longer letting the years pass by. We're now just about 5 minutes till I believe our next show starts. So I suppose to end this off, first of all, do we recommend this movie? We said before the break, but
yeah, I said maybe 5 minutes in, but absolutely, it is. Not only is it beautiful to look at, and the music is fantastic, and the just general artistic direction and design of all of it is absolutely show-stopping, but it is a core, crucial message, whether you're trans or queer or not, that you have to chase the things in your life that you need to do. If you feel a feeling inside of you that there's something about your life that has to change, some part of your identity, some part of your career, whatever it is, if you feel a feeling that something isn't right, then you gotta listen to it. You gotta open up and look at it.
I also agree. Again, I've already mentioned the show. I highly recommend this movie. Like, it's not made for everyone because it does have a very non-traditional pacing and kind of story structure, but really kind of like allow yourself to immerse yourself in this world, and the visuals, and kind of the story and the themes it's trying to show. I highly recommend it. It is a one-of-a-kind watch that I don't think will ever be kind of truly replicated. And of course, onto the big question: was it made in terrible taste? I mean, I think it's safe to say I don't think so. I think as much contention as the ending brings, I think it's pretty safe to say that ultimately, like Jane Schoenbrun, it's a very personal look on the topic of being transgender, and sort of going back to the point I made earlier about both Owen and Maddie / Tara representing these two kind of possibilities when going through that transition process, the two outlooks. I think they did a really amazing job of just kind of showcasing these themes and ideas, even if the word transgender is never used. As much as surreal as this movie is, the topics and the themes they're not all that subtle, I think.
No,
But
you'd have to be watching with a real specific mindset to avoid any of the trans themes and messaging through this film.
By the time you get to the part with the pink dress, it's like, oh, okay, so this is where this movie trying to head towards.
Yeah, like, come on. But yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it is a beautiful work of art that is just, is such an important thing to be existing in the world. Like I said earlier before the break, this is the kind of media that I wish I had in my life before I transitioned. This is the kind of thing that I think more people should watch. There should be more content like this in the world. It deserves all the love. It really does.
I believe that brings us to now the end of the show. Jimmy, you've been an absolutely amazing guest here for our debut episode.
And thanks for having me. It's been great fun. I mean, I love to get to talk about the things I'm passionate about, obviously. I mean, who doesn't?
So, yes, we'll be broadcasting next week, perhaps with a new guest. Perhaps Jamie will come back to tell us all about the great lore of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But for now, that'll be the end of our debut episode of Terrible Taste. Remember to follow us on Instagram, and also, of course, check out Jamie's fundraiser at Terrible Taste Radio.
I did a thumbs up. You can't see it, but I did a thumbs up.
And with that, that concludes our debut episode on I Saw the TV Glow by Jane Schoenbrun. And to play us out, we shall be playing the credits song for the movie, which is another season by Francis Quinlan. So once again, thank you for tuning in, and have a nice day. I'll see you next time on Terrible Taste. Woo!